My name is Andres Ayesta. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition coach, and I'm based out of Tampa, Florida, and I own a company called Planos Nutrition that specializes in helping high performers improve the way that they live their lives, optimize their health for longevity, and ultimately accomplish their goals in the best state of health and wellness as possible. My background is working with professional athletes back in the day, and now I just help a little bit of everyone. So excited to be here.
Andreas, thanks for being here. And the listeners don't know that we had an awesome conversation before, but we always do a discovery call with everyone. And you're just so wonderful to talk to. Seriously, just seemed like a really awesome guy. And so I love having people like yourself on. But I thought, as I was thinking about this, there's so much you could talk about, clearly, and you have such a great qualified experience. But as we're saying, I want to talk a little bit about the slippery slope of scope of practice for fitness professionals who desire to help their clients with nutrition, but are always not so sure. And I think you have a good insight in this because you have a fitness background. I believe you are CSCS certified as well. So you understand the fitness side of it as well. So let's kind of launch into a little bit from your perspective how fitness professionals can be better about discussing nutrition with clients on a high level, and then we'll kind of get a little bit into the weeds there.
Yeah. So let's kind of set the groundwork first and kind of explain why this is an issue. Um, the reason why this is an issue or what it's become an issue for the past few years is because that there are licensure laws that protect the profession of dietetics and what can or cannot be provided from the nutritional standpoint, because ultimately it is something that can affect somebody positively or negatively depending on the advice that is being given, particularly when there's underlying conditions and whether there's a disease or chronic issue going on. And there's, our profession is equipped with the clinical knowledge to be able to handle those things. Now, I'm not the conventional dietitian that will go and say that you are not allowed to give nutrition advice if you're not a dietitian. And in fact, some of the people that I looked up the most or the highest to in terms that I provide and help people in the coaching space are not dietitians. And they don't have a background in, like, they do have a background in nutrition training, but not like in the same dietetics route that I took. So I'm the first one to tell you that I don't necessarily believe that they're all dietitians or only dietitians are the ones that need to provide nutritional advice. But I think, like, at the big picture view, I feel like there's just so many people right now doing that. And it's scary because there's such a big amount of misinformation that we never know when you're going to run into a piece of advice that, and again, for people listening who are fitness professionals, you never know when you're going to provide a piece of advice that may have been well intentioned but created a problem. Like, I'll give you a simple example. You told somebody that they should be taking like X multivitamin, and it turns out that that person had a very intense allergic reaction to something that was in that, or like something along those lines. And then now you're held liable to that because you were the trainer or the fitness professional that told him or that her that you should be taking that specific supplement. So that's where, like, there's important to draw a line because it can actually backfire for the professional, not only for the person being affected, but at the same time, it can ruin somebody's career, which is, I think, what it's important to be careful around it.
Yeah, I think there's so much. I don't know if controversy is the right word, but there's just so much. Um, you get this weird line that's there, and I've seen this with so many trainers is they desperately want to help clients with their nutritional wisdom, their nutritional approach, and on some instances, they're hesitant to refer to dietitians because they want to have this whole bank of business. They want to be able to be everything to the person they're with. But what are just some maybe practical guidelines for fitness professionals of what is appropriate and what is probably not appropriate in terms of that line when working with clients to providing this information.
Yeah. And I'm honestly hope that I don't get in trouble with my board. Essentially, I don't. I feel like people can have a little bit more leeway to provide nutritional advice more so than what it's like required by licensure laws. So let's just first, I guess, understand like if you live in a state that does not have licensure laws for, I live in Florida, for example, and this was a big topic of debate in the dietetics world because of the fact that like the licensure laws kind of got a little bit more less restrictive when it comes on to providing advice. So now people that are not dietitians can do that. And people got super upset about it. And I personally, I was like, okay, like listen, we need more people providing nutritional like guidance because there's not enough dietitians. And at the same time, this is gonna ruffle some feathers. Not all dietitians are great dietitians. That's just the truth, right? And I think there's a lack of there's some distrust on, and I get it, on certain trainers and fitness professionals who know their stuff, and there's a hesitation in recommending a dietitian because I know for a fact there's people, and again, I'm not by any means I'm saying like I'm the best at it. That people need to kind of be wary still about the stuff that I say, but I consider myself to be well educated enough to provide, and I have the track record with my clients that I think supports the fact that I do try to provide good advice. It's ensuring that it's hard to trust obviously somebody out there that you don't know if is actually going to do a better job than you can. So practical advice, what can somebody do when it comes down to that? Number one, look into your licensure laws within your state, because if you have a little bit more leeway to be able to provide advice, then that comes down to practical step number two, which is, well, get adequately certified in something nutrition specific. For me, the best certification that is out there that I feel like encompasses a lot of like behavioral change and nutritional coaching is Precision Nutrition. I've followed them for years, and I feel like they have one of the most all around um, certifications. It's actually backed up by dietitians and by physical or fitness trainers, and at the same time PhDs. So I feel like if you want to provide advice, be very well educated on it. Practical step number three is it's basically a do not provide advice based on your own experience, because that can like that's what most people on social media do, right? It's like, I got a six pack, I'm gonna teach you how to get a six pack. Look at my bikini body, now I'm gonna teach you how to do the same thing, like eat these things. That is not sound advice. That's just bro or girl science. Like it's not really something that it's adequate. So get properly certified, have and do all the things that you need to do to be adequately providing advice and be evidence based. I think those are like the most important steps that anyone who has a personal training certification or a background in fitness and perhaps didn't really want to go the dietitian route, that's what I would do if I didn't have my credentials. Which, by the way, I feel like, if I could go back, like I don't know if I would have done this. Now, it kind of gives me a bit of a slant of authority, but right now, dietitians do not get the best rep, and I get why. It's a very tainted like organization, right? It's supported by big, uh, Coca-Cola is one of their big sponsors. So it's like you start to question, like, a lot of times some of their things. And I do too. I'm not even a member of their organization. I pay my dues because I want to keep my hard work and all the hours that I put into it. But I don't necessarily feel like it's a trustworthy organization. And again, like they can come after me if they want. I don't really care.
I love that honesty. That's what I want on here. That's really amazing. I want to back up a little bit on point number three, because this is, I think, where we're getting into a lot of trouble in our industries, is that often what trainers do, and certainly what content providers do. And I want to make this clear that content providers are not necessarily service providers. They're content creators who often never actually work with anyone. It's just stuff they do. And they're telling you. This often is a problem with trainers too, is that I'm on this particular dietary approach or nutritional approach, and I'm going to tell you what I've done to help you get to where you need to be. Is this something that, do you think that this is probably one of the larger problems, or is it just overblown, you think?
No, it is a big of a larger problem. It's because of the fact that fitness trainers are becoming content creators. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm a content creator. You're a content
That's
creator.
right.
Like, we're okay right now recording this podcast. We are creating content. But the problem is the type of content that is created, and and what is it that you're pursuing with the content you're creating? A content creator that now started to make a living off of it, because now this is a full-time blown profession, which it's funny that like 5 years ago people laughed about like the fact that people would say I'm a content creator and people would laugh in their faces. Like, look at Mr. Beast, right? Like, this is one of the biggest, like, most like multimillionaire just creating videos. So it's understanding also that a content creator looks for clicks, views, engagement, and they'll do anything that they can to do to be able to accomplish that, whether it's, clickbait stuff or like misinformation content or whatever is the case, right? Because ultimately they're trying to build an audience that they can either sell them something, or that they can sell something in their account that people can get paid for, partnerships, or whatever is the case, or and I get it. I'm a content creator. People reach out to me, and I have been paid by brands to work to do paid stuff. So it's again like a matter of numbers. Now it doesn't matter what the content that is created. Now it's your responsibility as a fitness coach, as somebody that is a service provider, to make sure that the content you're creating is not just simply in pursuit of like just increasing your audience. Yes, it's important, but do it so in an ethical, adequate way, which I think is where we see so many blurred lines in content creators nowadays, right? Because they have some of the biggest follows when you look at somebody like, for example, a little bit like the carnivore diet proponents, who have like zero scientific like evidence to support a lot of the claims, wild claims that they have, and now they have amassed an audience of millions, right? And people are listening to their advice, and it's technically nutrition advice for a lot of them, sometimes given by chiropractors and by people that do not necessarily have the background. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So I think you need to first be a fitness coach, a service provider, and then become a content creator, but just making sure that you're an ethical one. The amount of times that people will tell me, like, even like agency or like mentors that, I've worked with, you got to create this like polarizing content, and you got to like go against the grain. And sometimes I do, and things that I truly believe in. But for me to say like, crazy wild claims in effort of like just me creating polarizing content so I increase engagement and more people see my stuff, I just don't have that in me. And I don't feel like it's because I don't feel like that's for the greater good. And that's where I feel like I'm drawing the line. And I feel like a lot of good healthcare professionals, fitness professionals, I think they should as well.
Gosh, this is a great line of conversation. And you were saying, and when you said ethics, I said, oh, we have to go down this pathway a little bit. And then you mentioned that you just don't have this in you. I feel the same way. I was just telling my wife the other day, I said, one of the reasons why I think that I struggle with like my YouTube and stuff like that is like, I'm just not willing to cross a line other people are willing to do. And because of that, it hurts me somewhat in terms of that aspect of clicks, views, things of that nature, because I think we're all at the point we kind of know what would work. We know kind of what would work and what would be outrageous. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about what would be, obviously ethics can be very personal, different people, but what type of ethics do you think would work best for us as a profession to, one, have better reputations as dietitians, fitness professionals, and beyond?
I honestly feel like it's just, I think most people, especially in our field, um, I don't know about you, but I don't think nobody goes into personal training just for the money, right? People like it's not like you're gonna be paid millions the moment that you become a personal trainer. People do it because they care to help others. They're passionate about fitness. They're passionate about like improving people's lives. That's ultimately their calling and why they decide to do it, right? Like, yeah, I'm sure some people do it because they want to have like this massive online coaching company or whatever is the case, and sure, that's fine. But most people have the right intention to be able to do it. So when I usually tell people when I'm working and helping, and sometimes like I on the side, I kind of help people improve their personal brands, is to just be yourself, because I believe that ultimately you being yourself and humanizing yourself in the best way possible without having to just be somebody who you're not, which is usually what a lot of times a lot of these content creators end up becoming. Um, that authenticity, I feel, creates more trust. Why do people want to work with somebody right now in this like distrust? I call it we're currently living in a trust recession. I always call it, which means that it's really difficult for people to trust somebody and give them money in exchange of a service, because well, people got burned many times, scammed, and it's so easy nowadays with technology, with AI, with so many different things like that. And honestly, I personally, my business has struggled because of that reason. I have conversations all the time with people who tell me, they literally, this woman the other day said, no offense to you, but if it wasn't because so and so recommended you, I would have never booked this conversation with you today. I was like, I totally get that. Like I have 100%. So the way that you create that, you establish that, it's I call it like the know, like, and trust factor, right? KLTs. So how do you develop that? Well, people need to know you're authentic on it. You need to be likable. You need to make sure that you show up in the best authentic version of you. And when you do those things, people start to trust you and trust the things that come out of your mouth. But you have to do it from an authentic standpoint. If all you do is creating content or sharing things just simply for the clicks and the views and the likes, like that's not really authentic. And ultimately, and this is where you see people with like massive followings also that are dead broke, because they're really good at convincing their audiences that they have, like something worth, like, sharing, whether it's specifically in the fitness world, right?
Right.
They have the body and they have all the different things like that. And people like to, like, okay, like I want to, like, this guy, I really like to engage with their content, but they never buy one thing from them because maybe they don't necessarily trust him. They like the guy, they like the woman, they
Yeah.
like the thing, but they don't necessarily trust them enough to actually do anything from them. And again, not that's not everyone, but there's a big number of, you would be surprised of the number of people with hundreds of thousands of followers who are not necessarily making a living out of that, because of the fact that I feel like they're lacking that. And at the same time, you can see people with 1,000 followers making millions, right? Because they only need this 1,000 people that really like them, that trust them, that anything they say they will listen to because they're loyal to them. And I feel that that comes down to authenticity, and I think that's the right and ethical way to be able I guess, like, stand out within this field, or at least is the way that I try to.
Right. Authenticity is just a great word. I think I like trust recession too. I haven't heard that. That's really awesome. I'm going to use that. Give you credit for it. Andreas, but I think what's interesting about authenticity is kind of like when you see something and it doesn't feel right, right? And it's like it's this uncanny valley. Like the robot is not a human because you know it's not a human. There's something. This is a big tech thing trying to overcome the uncanny valley. And I always think it's same with humans is that you kind of know when someone's fake, and but it's you have to like trust your own intuition about it. And so I wonder in the world of dietitians, how do we know how to trust dietitians and providing because nutrition is such a minefield, just like fitness of information. What makes a great dietitian someone who a nutritionist, someone who could be trusted and who you feel like I feel like I want to spend time and be a part of this person's service?
Yeah. So it's harder by the day because of the fact of technology, like you said, right? Like, AI is taking the world by its storm, and it's difficult to know. Like, you can even make your own clone of yourself, and you can feed it a script nowadays, and literally will talk just like you. And it's no longer like that little weird, like, image, and then like that weird mouth that kind of moves around. Like, you could totally tell it's like an AI thing. Oh, it's very authentic. It looks like it's insane. So it's hard to be able to, like, to trust. And this is why I feel authenticity and being yourself without the use of AI all the time, I think has its merit. I think that's going to be a very important commodity, right? Because everybody else is going to be doing that, right? So it's going to really be interesting to be able to hear somebody live and talking through this stuff is not necessarily somebody that is kind of speaking behind, like, a chat GPT prompt or so. So I think that's a big part of it that I think is key. Now, what separates a good dietitian from somebody that is maybe a smokescreen, I feel like, and this applies to any profession. One, I feel like it's somebody that is not necessarily always expecting something in return, right?
Mm.
Like they're not always asking for something. They're truly providing value for the sake of providing value, right? They're willing to one of the things is they don't necessarily save keep. Like for me, my nutritional business, and this is something that I really struggled with at the beginning, was I don't want to provide too much free content because, like, why would people want to work with me if I provide all this stuff? Until I worked with a mentor who told me give out everything, everything, and I was like, why would I do that? Like, people are not gonna want to work with me. That is exactly the reason why they're gonna work with you because they realize that the more you give, what else? I mean, this guy's giving away so much stuff. I mean, imagine what it's gonna be like if I actually get to work with them. And it is. Uh, it's day and night because ultimately people want to work with you. It's not because of information. There's plenty of that out there. This is why I give out everything to me, like to people. Like I jump on a call today and I literally kind of explain everything to this person about like calorie deficit and all that kind of stuff like that, which easily could have been like a $300 session if I wanted to. I didn't charge a dime. I just wanted to provide that feedback because I know that person, what they got from that conversation in exchange of nothing. I didn't ask for anything. I didn't even ask for a sale. I didn't even sold her on anything. I literally said, I have a program. If you want it, let me know and I'll send you some details. Great, because I know that person, the first individual they're gonna think about whenever they truly need somebody to support them. I know it's gonna be me
Hmm.
because I know the value that I provided. So I guess to be authentic, just provide insane amount of value in exchange for nothing. And I promise it's going to pay off, like even when you think it doesn't. Me coming into this podcast, me creating podcasts, you doing this stuff. Like, is anybody paying you to do
No.
this episode? Nobody's paying you, right? You do it for because you are trying to you jump on a call with me to try to make sure that this was going to be a worthy conversation. This is stuff what matters, and I feel like this is currency that it's invaluable. So you want to make yourself invaluable, just provide value to those who need it in exchange for nothing. I feel like that's honestly the biggest differentiator.
That's fantastic. I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's a great points. Like I, like yourself, I think initially struggled with that, and then I thought, no, I think just giving out all these episodes and all of my content, my information, my wisdom, my knowledge, it's a rope pull. You start pulling people towards you. And they go, oh, this now I'm seeing this person is so trustworthy. Like, look at them. Why would they do this? It creates intrigue also with that. I want to kind of pivot a little bit because nutrition is just rife with so much content and information. But obviously, as you know, there's so many different topics in nutrition that are going on right now. And I feel like we're in this area where different types of approaches are very in vogue, whether it's carnivore, plant-based, pescatarian, whatever it is. What's your kind of general philosophy or mindset related to all these different approaches for individuals and different people?
Yeah. I always explain to people that I'm diet agnostic. So I don't have like a specific diet that I preach or feel that anybody should follow. I believe anybody should follow something that works for them and that it's supported by science. Those are my two requirements. And even if it's not supported by science, if it's not going to potentially cause any harm, I think it's obviously something worth doing for somebody if they can actually sustain it. So in fact, like right now, I am doing a diet experiment. I am going in a few days on a carnivore diet, and not by choice. I'm just testing things. I'm trying to understand if the benefits that people are claiming to have from carnivore, which is a huge topic nowadays, come from the fact that people simply remove a butt ton of foods that they shouldn't be consuming in the first place and then make this like 180 change overnight, or if it's a result of the fact that yeah, eating just meat, it has like this like magic, unicorn like effect, type of situation. And to do that, I went on a whole foods diet for 30 days. I tested everything before and then after. And then I'm about to go on a carnivore diet for about 30 days as well to really understand the differences. So my philosophy of that about diets is the fact that number one, yes, you got to do the one that works best for you. And number two, it's also important to understand and learn how to run, how to learn how to walk before you can run. A lot of these diets that you see people out there and like they require so many different like I call them advanced eating methods. And you know, anything advanced, if you don't know the basics of something, you should start with the basics of something. And people don't understand that. So for me, we have to focus on just the very basics of nutritional management, and most people don't even understand exactly what that looks like. So they look for band-aids. Now we live in the also revolution of weight loss drugs,
Right.
which are available everywhere now. And it's not just now doctor prescribed. Now anybody can get it. Yes, supposedly through a quote unquote doctor who's just a nurse practitioner hiding behind like a keyboard and then just simply prescribing left and right as long as you paid for it. And then like that's not teaching anybody how to eat. It's just essentially shutting down their hunger. And some people need it, don't get me wrong. But I had conversations about this all the time. They're not necessarily fixing the root cause of the problem, which is teaching people how to eat. So for me, it's not about whether you do keto or carnivore. It's like, do you actually understand how those diets work in the first place, which ultimately help you manage and control caloric intake, not because they're any type of magic in any type of way. So that's the way I believe, you know, nutrition is, I guess, my philosophy. You think about it, and it can be just simply summarized in all foods can fit, depending on your approach.
And what's interesting about nutrition is that it has such a stronghold on people's identity. So when someone
Hmm.
says, I am a carnivore, right, or I am a vegetarian, I am a vegan, they assign an identity to themselves that this is who I am. Why do we do this with nutrition so much more than we do this in other areas besides maybe religion?
Well, that's why I used the word agnostic earlier on uh, because people get married to the thing that created. Let me put it this way. Let me backtrack. I think food is like the foundation of a lot of things in our health, right? It can make us, it can also break us, right? If it didn't, we didn't have such a big problem in America with obesity and all different things like that. So, but it can also make us. It can actually completely change the way that we feel and live. So when somebody is in pain, struggling, and lost and really in a bad place, and they did something that completely shifted and changed that. Whatever that was, they're going to be married to that idea. And because this is what saved them. So usually people find that in religion. Sometimes they commit to a path with God, and now now the religion becomes their thing. Other people is, you know, a person. They find a person that completely changed their lives, and they may end up marrying them or just becoming really close to them, whether it's a good or a bad thing, because sometimes it can go both ways. The same thing is with diet. You may find the diet that completely changed the way you felt, gave you energy, it changed your body, like it gave you confidence. Wouldn't you want to just marry that into like, you know, everything when it just gave you so much? Now, the problem is that you attach to it so much without realizing that it wasn't really the diet that created this. It was just the principle, right? That created that idea. And but people don't see that because they're uneducated about it. So now they go around the world or I guess in this case social media comments praising this diet no matter what it is. So and now they're gonna go and looking for for clues and for things that confirm that belief. That's called confirmation bias,
That's right.
which is again when somebody will search for information that confirms their beliefs. So again, like you said, it becomes their identities. I am is not just necessarily like I follow a carnivore
Right. Or
diet.
I
I
practice
am.
this, you know, like, yeah.
Yes, I am a carnivore, right? So this is part of who I am because it changed my life, and you should do the same, and everybody should be following this, right? So that's where it becomes dangerous is because now, let's just put it this way, when a fitness coach, for example, does something like this and he changes their lives, he or she becomes biased because maybe that's now what they're pushing. There's a story behind this for me that honestly I'm not afraid to share, which is in 2017 I started working at a sports facility that also had a clinical side of it that worked with people with neurological conditions. And they specifically worked on doing research around ketogenic diets, which in a way they're similar to a carnivore diet. So it was my job as a dietitian to coach them on how to follow a ketogenic diet adequately. Now, for me, I needed to I have a thing where, like, if I'm gonna coach or teach somebody to do a specific diet, I have to do it myself to understand it better. So I did it, and I went in and embarked on a ketogenic journey for about a year, going through that process. And honestly, I felt pretty good. And I started noticing the shift in the way that I was actually coaching my clients. And I took note of that a few months later, where I was inclining myself towards recommending maybe you should do keto. Have you considered a ketogenic diet? Have you considered that this is actually something that you could do? And then until now that I realized looking back, I was getting biased based on my own experience. Just because and again, this is what happens with a lot of fitness coaches, which is again like their own experience dictates exactly what happens. And again, it doesn't disvalidate your experience. You totally can share what worked for you, but you have to really disclaim or you have to just provide that disclaimer, the fact that just because it works for me doesn't necessarily work for you, can work for you, but this is what I did. And I think this is a way that I think a lot of coaches can also provide, not necessarily provide advice, but just simply share experiences. Hey, like, I'm not telling you to do this. This is what worked for me. And I did this and this and that, and I ate this and this and this way. Again, you should consult with a dietitian or physician or a specialist in this stuff. I just wanted to share my experience. So even so with me is, as a dietitian, as I'm coaching people, I will tell them like, hey, listen, like, have you considered this? Now, this is something that's worked for me, or this is something that worked for this client, potentially could work for you. What do you think? Like, what are your views on this? Right? Let the client, let the person make the decision and just simply provide the information so they can actually make an adequate, informed choice depending on what it is. So anyways, that's a long-winded answer to your question on
No,
what do I believe in.
no, it's great because it just feels like our identities are so tied to, as you mentioned, these dramatic changes that have such emotional connection to existentially almost to who we are, that we feel very much like I have to spread the gospel of this, right? And so for a lot of nutrition, again, I'm making this comparison. It functions a lot like religion in that you want to convert people to that because this was so great for me. There's no way it can't be great for you. And the danger of that is that there's so much diversity in humans. And what works for us is that you may be lovingly wanting someone to do something that was so great for you and completely be blinded to the fact that it may be one of the worst things for them, and just never even thinking of that something that you loved wasn't good for someone else, because it feels counterintuitive, like, well, it was great. It's like someone saying, I love being in the ocean, I've never experienced an accident on a boat in the ocean. In your mind you're thinking nothing ever happened bad ever happens in the ocean, but yeah, plenty of stuff bad does happen in the ocean. It's just recognizing that it's not always 100% amazing.
Exactly. And this is also the way like these like influencers with massive follows actually build these cults. I have I have gone on YouTube to create videos reacting to other people's stuff,
Hmm.
and particularly big influencers or big content creators in the health and wellness space. And the amount of people that stand up for them, like in a like they're God type of way, it's insane. It's like, man, like I wish people spoke about me that way, right? And like these are people who are just, they're the actual creators don't know anything about
You
them. They
don't
don't
even
know they
know
even
these
exist,
secrets. No.
right? So it's like, how are you so going out of your way? Well, most likely because one, we change also their lives because they listen to their thing. And the one thing that they work that changed the content creator's life or the one that's influential lives also changed theirs, right? But the thing is, you're not paying attention to it's a numbers game. If you have 5 million followers and 1% of your followers had an incredible change, it's 50,000 people.
Right.
How much? 50,000 people, it's a stadium. So you're going to have 50,000 people who completely change your lives because of it. But what about the other 99% that potentially either didn't follow it or not really paying attention, or whatever? Like when you take that amount of people and you start to see what worked and didn't, then you're gonna find that. Like I had a call with a client or a prospect client who just went on a diet called Tavia, which is a commercial diet weight loss program. Um, and the people who again like their identity that completely change your lives, they're going in the comments and telling you like it's effective, it's sustainable if you know how to do it and stuff like that. But then there's another, like for every comment I get like that, there's at least like 5 or 6 of people that would say it didn't work for me, I gained the weight back, or like all these different things happen, right? So then it's a ratio that exists. And I'm happy for the people that worked. And when people start to go on these different routes, I tell them, like, I really hope it works for you, but I hope that it works long term. And I don't go against it. It's just simply the reality. And this is why a lot of these diet programs typically get so famous because it's a numbers game. And that's where the problem lies. It's not absolute. I like to, if I'm gonna help people, I'd rather just take 10 clients that I know I can change 10 of their lives, or nine, like 90% success rate, rather than taking 1,000 and only getting like 90 people to change their lives, because what happens to the other 90%, right? So that to me is more important.
Yeah, and I feel very similar to that. This is just awesome. So, Andres, maybe it's just some last takeaways, maybe top 2 or 3 takeaways for our fit pros who listen, and how they can just be better at disseminating or providing some level of nutritional information and coaching to their clients.
Simplify people's lives. I don't think you have to overcomplicate it just to simply sound smarter or better. And sometimes that's needed. But I think number one advice is again, like simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So teach people I mean, if you want to create a cult and followers of people, like teach them the basic stuff, right? Like lift weights, move your body, get enough protein, drink enough water, get fruits and vegetables. Like that's like universal stuff that if everybody did it, you will probably be better off. But that's just the boring, unsexy stuff that nobody really like. Everybody knows, but don't necessarily do. In fact, I teach my clients, like I call it the core five, which is literally 5 things that everybody should do, and it's those: get protein, get fiber, get enough water, move your body, get enough food. Like that's a again, like do this for 30 days in a row. Like do these 5 things without any details and see what happens, right? So focus on simplifying people's lives, not overcomplicate it. And that would be number one. The second thing is again, be you, be authentic to your audience. And I promise, like you have something to share, and you don't have to have a million followers to be able to, one, have a successful business, and two, to have people that actually know, like you, and trust you, which is another big piece on the equation. And number three, if you truly want to go a step further in terms of knowing how to provide nutritional advice, at least get certified on it. And at the very least, and then like if you really want to go all out, then go the full nine and become a dietitian, which a lot of people in the training side of things have done. It's a long route, but to me, I still, if I do it again, I would probably still do it again, though even so I said earlier that I wouldn't. But I think it's rewarding, and it's definitely something that I feel like it will give you an edge over people, and particularly because of the fact that I'm sure people listening to this will probably going to be on the right side of the equation when it comes down to
Mhm.
dietitians are concerned.
Andreas, thank you so much for your time. Just awesome. I'm so glad we met each other. Seriously, you're a good person, and and provide such great advice and you seem like a very professional guy. So I truly appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Parker, and happy to share anything else for your audience that they consider valuable.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.